Ja kuulame nüüd meie järgmist esinejat, kes on Binninger. Takt, plaanimine ja kontroll ehituse töövoolu kvaliteedi tagamiseks.
So, hello everybody, and welcome to the presentation. Thank you for the introduction, and thank you for the possibility to present here in Tallinn. The topic is tech planning and tech control as a method of lean construction. We have heard today a lot about lean and lean construction, and I would like to jump a little bit into this method and answer you three questions. The first question is, why do we do this? Why do we do this kind of method? Second question is, what are we doing in this method? And the third question is, what are the results out of this method? What we want to do, we want to achieve a kind of flow. And before I jump into this presentation, I would like to explain you the two phrases, takt and flow. Flow from a point, from the perspective from the manufacturing or production. It's like from the automotive sector, the car is going on one side of the production inside the building, going via the conveyor belt through the production, and this is the flow. And we achieve the flow in the way that the automotive sector has a kind of takt. Takt means a kind of rhythm or beat, so the working stations which are fixed in the production, they have a special amount of time, and then the car goes to the next station. This is what we call takt. So for example, for Porsche it's around 3 minutes takt, and then every 3 minutes a car is falling out of the production. For BMW, it's around 56 seconds or something. It just have a higher amount of sales. Who am I? Short introduction. I don't know what he already told about me. My name is Binninger. I'm 30 years old. I'm from Germany. From the background, I'm a civil engineer. And I studied at the KIT, so that's why you see these three signs here. So one is the KIT, it's the Karlsruhe Institute of Technology. That's where I'm also working right now. I'm doing there my PhD in a part-time, so I'm 20% there. In real life, it means I'm working there on Saturday and Sunday. And my other 80% I work for a general construction company in Germany. It's called Weißenburger Bau. I will later show one slide about this company. And I started directly after my studies. I started at this general construction company, and I implemented their lean principles. They have already done one pilot project before I came there, and then we rolled it out. And between these times, so I was here till 2014, and I came back to Weißenburger 2016. Between the time I worked for a Swiss company here in Tallinn. Maybe you know this company. It's a smaller company, Swiss property. Parallel, we have heard today about the Lean Construction Institute, so we also have a German version of it. It's called GLCI, German Lean Construction Institute. There I'm responsible for one practical group. What we do there, we have just some meetings 2 times per year, and we have it's a kind of exchange group to talk about the topic of lean. All right. So first I would like to show you why we are doing this method, why we are using this, and why we decided for this method and not for another method in the field of lean construction. If we go back to the time, 8-9 years ago, how we managed construction sites, it was like this, that the site manager made a plan. It looked more or less like this. Sometimes it was more detailed, sometimes it was less detailed. What you see here, sorry, it's in German. Here you see the different trades. So he said, okay, this drywaller, he needs 1.5 months, then he's finished, and the electric guy can come a little bit later because he needs first this preparation of the drywall. And here you see the timeline. So it's a classical Gantt chart. What happens, sometimes it was more detailed, and you can read a little bit more out of it. Sometimes, or most of the times, the site manager was then responsible on site to handle the whole trades. So to say, okay, go first in this flat and later in this flat, or start from this direction and go to this direction. And also, if you look at the chart, today we figured out, or we heard about the client is in the middle, is in the center, so we want to satisfy him. If a client, and I talk about an end client, like we are building residential houses, if somebody wants to buy just one flat, and this is the time schedule for the house, he doesn't know in which state his flat really is on a daily basis. If he goes to the construction site, and I would have bought this flat, I would like to know in which state. Is there just the drywaller inside, or is the electric guy inside, or can I just check the floor? Is it already done? So here you don't see it because usually it's not really detailed. What happens on site? Yeah. It's like this. So you see here the construction progress, the different kind of activities which happens per day. So in the beginning we start usually a little bit slower, and in the end we come to this crazy phase. I call it always a Chinese principle, where we just run behind the schedule. So we have had some delays, and what happens is we just try to fix the situation when we put more resources on the project. What happens? The productivity and the efficiency slows down in the end. For sure, we will manage to make more than before, but usually we have here 4 till 5 times more resources on the project. And this is usually the phase where we all, the subcontractors, the general contractor, but also the client, lose the money. Another slide which I want to just show you from which point we started, and I think almost 95% of German construction companies are at this point. What we do in construction, we try to manage, or we do manage resources and costs, but we don't manage the value creation. We have seen it in your slide, so the productivity in the construction sector is not really high. And always if people talk about the construction sector in Germany, it's not often in a really positive way. We only think on a project base. So we plan, we 100% of the company, 100% is based on to manage projects. And projects have the following thing. They have a kind of starting curve, which we can have a kind of learning effect. And then they last for 1 year or something outside, maybe a little bit less or more. And then we have this end phase. And between there's no really consistency in the production flow, in the value creation. We have a quite fragmented market. That means we have a lot of small subcontractors, a lot of small planners, which we have to fit together, or which have to fit together for one project. And we have a high specification of this people. What we have to do, we have to bring them together for one project, for a single project, and we have to put a lot of effort into them that this project will run. What we also do outside, we do a lot of firefighting from the site manager's perspective. We have done observation about 55 hours and 6 construction, or the site managers. And what do you think, how often do they change their tasks? How often does a site manager change his task? In minutes? Every hour, every 1 minute, every 2 minutes? 2? It's every 8 minutes. Every 8 minutes. And the funniest thing is most of the construction managers, site managers are male. So for them it's quite difficult to do multitasking, as you all know. The point is, how you can see this, only 1/3 of the task after this interruption. So every 8 minutes he has an interruption, and only 1/3 of the task he starts afterwards to continue. 2/3 of the times he switched to a totally different task. And if you see it from this perspective, that you always need 1 or 2 minutes to get into this new task, then you can calculate how high his efficiency is. What comes out, he has a lot of stress, and usually he's doing overtime. So in this study we saw that he is usually working 8.3 or 4 9.4 hours per day, so every day 1.5 hours overwork, just to get back to the original schedule. And what we also have is missing consistency, so every day he's doing something different, just running behind the trades and the schedule. What's also coming out, I think in the construction sector we are, the world champions of quick problem solving. So if there is a problem, and there are a lot of problems, we will find a solution within a few minutes. But what happens, the solution is not sustainable. the problem will come up a few minutes later, a day later, or a week later. So if I analyze the problems which we have outside, they can be reduced to 5 or 6 main problems. This is subcontractor, this is client's wishes, no process control, point. You can continue, but it's not so many problems, but we don't solve them in a sustainable way. So that's this situation where we started some years ago. I have to say before, we haven't managed to solve these problems in a full way, but we try to work on it. So as a basis, I would like to show you how we integrated flow and Takt, just that we are all on the same level. So we have the construction side, and this is usually a typical value chain for construction. So we have the construction side, maybe here's a building. So we have on the other side the supplier, and between we have an information flow. He's ordering something, and the resources are coming to the construction side. Resources can be a plan, can be workers, and can be also material. What we tried, what happens here, for example, I will show you an example of doors. We need, for example, what should I say? We need 30 doors in the next months. This the construction site knows what he is doing, and he is not doing 30 days per day, 30 doors per day. He is maybe doing 1 or 2 days doors per day. What he is doing, he is ordering 30 doors. This guy, supplier, says, oh, for me it makes only sense if I can fill the whole truck, so I will bring 100 doors. And what he says, okay, for me it makes only sense to start the conveyor belt if I produce 1,000 doors. So what happens if you go to the workload? We have here smaller problems, and with the bullwhip effect, maybe you know this effect, it goes more and more, and here we have the biggest problems. So what we try to do, we have only as a general contractor, or more or less we have only a big influence on this side. So we try to integrate a kind of flow within the trades. So we bring the trades into a sequence and let them go through the building like a train. And this in a takted way. So that means in the beginning the drywaller is there, maybe for 1 week if we choose the takt time for 1 week. Afterwards he will go to the next area, could be a floor, it could be a flat, and then the electric guy follows, and after the next takt they just go and continue to flow over the building. This is the idea, and from this point we start, and I would like to tell you what we have done within this company Weißenburger. So the case study is Weißenburger Bau. When I started there, we had already 1 pilot project. This general construction company is 60 years old, so they have quite a lot of experience. It's not so big, it's 240 million and sales, and they have almost 300 employees. But the point is they are one of the most successful companies in Germany from the financial point. What we have done in the last years, we have done 120 projects with this tech planning and tech control, and I would like to show you what we have done there. What we're doing, they are just focused on residential buildings, or in a turnkey way they produce it. So what's meant with this, so we build 500 row houses per year, we build 1,600 units of flats or hotel rooms per year. So that you have just a little bit of a rough figure. What we have done here, that's a project in Karlsruhe. We did more or less 90% of this area, but just project for project. So I think here this was not 1 project, this were 3 or 4 projects in different phases. And so also this big area with the high repetitive work, we just split it into project and handled it like the normal construction sector. So what we have done, how we implemented this method, we started here the time scale, and you have here the projects. Here you can see, okay, we have almost reached 100 projects, and for sure we expanded faster and faster. We started to implement it, or the first contact with the topic lean was 2009, where the CEO went to a training and just they talked about tech planning and tech control. Can you put in the first one? So First contact was 2009. Then we started directly afterwards in the beginning of 2010 with the first pilot project. So we got also some support. We had Porsche Consulting they helped us. That's really the consulting company of Porsche, because they had quite a big success in their production, so they tried to bring it also to the construction sector. And at this time, it was a really big help to have them on board, because it's totally different if you want to change something or integrate something if you have external help. So the people are listening more to an external guy than internal guys. It's my experience. What we did, this project was so successful that we said, or the management said after this project, okay, let's start to roll this idea out. What happens? The same, like you already told, we failed in project 2. Project 2 was still good. Project 3 and 4 we just failed because we haven't trained the people. We didn't have the knowledge to roll it out. So what we did, we integrated a kind of special department who was doing the preparation of the sites, and also integrated this idea and was doing the trainings. We developed our trainings. That's how I came on board to this company. And we developed the kind of training where we do different rounds. Yesterday I showed another picture with another simulation. Here we do it with Lego row houses, where we play 3 rounds. The first round is in kind of traditional way. The second round we already integrated Takt, and third we also integrate a kind of Takt control. What we have also done, some steps, I just highlighted a few steps. We integrated a kind of production control system, which is based on a Takt, which is really based on Takted production. I don't want to go that much in detail, I just would like to show it. What we also done, we have implemented some overall lean project management tools. Since a few years, 2015 it started, we are one of the 100 most innovative companies in Germany. And this is not only for the construction sector, this is also for all sectors. So also we have other companies there from the automotive sector, IT sector. So for a construction company to be in this and to win this award, it's quite a big success. And one of the key factors was also lean. And what we have also done, we first tried to stabilize the flow. And from the point we had the feeling that it's quite stable, we speeded it up. It's always like this: stabilize first the flow or the production, and then speed it up. And what we did, we have achieved to reduce the production time by the factor up to 50%. So most of the projects are 30-40% faster than before. We're just scaling up the bench, the bench size. That means we don't think in floors or bigger areas. We just put them down to really small areas. I will show you later what it means. So how are we doing it, and how we implementing this idea to a new production, new project? There's 7 steps. We first look at the project and figure out which kind of parts are similar or not. For example, if you look at the hotel, usually the floors where the rooms are, they have a kind of repetitive work. And if you go down to the lobby, it's a little bit different from the other part. So then we go into these areas, identify the standard space unit. This is the kind of smallest repetitive area we can find. In a hotel, it's quite easy. It's a room. If you go a little bit more in detail and you really go really deep into the process, it can also be 1 square meter of drywall or 1 square meters of floor. But right now, for the first step, it's really 1 room, because this is a kind of unit where I can really close afterwards after it's finished. I can just close the door, and then this room is a separate unit. For normal residential homes, it's maybe a flat or maybe 3 or 4 types of flats. And for production hall, it can be a few hundred square meters of production site. Also regarding this methodology, a lot of German companies are using it, also BMW for their production halls. So that's, if we come to production halls, it's not so easy to find this standard space unit. There you just have to, you have to figure it out and discuss it a little bit with the trades and figure out what is your standard space unit, because it's usually one big area with a few hundred square meters. If we have identified this smaller area, we go really in detail and define the processes for this. That means we create a kind of parade of trades. Say, okay, first the drywaller, then the electric guy, and who comes next. You can also do it in the way how you do pull planning, so from backwards to forwards. But right now, my opinion is, I have figured out that it's quite difficult for the traditional guys to think backwards. So right now, most of the times we are doing it from this to this side, because it's nothing new. So that's also how they build up the houses before. But what we are doing, we go then one step deeper and really in detail. So we figure out, if the drywaller comes the first time inside the room, what kind of working steps does he have to do? Like first fixing the profiles, then doing the first closing one side. So we go really in detail, sometimes for construction project, just for the interior stuff. After the concrete work, we have, 600-700 working steps. For every working step, we calculated the amount which is inside here, like, 30 square meters of drywall, and get the rough estimation how much amount of time they need to finish this room. Then we try, this is the most important part, we try to level it. We say, okay, we define a kind of takt time here, is it maybe 5 days. We try to level this work. You can imagine it like the train. Every wagon is a trade, and it's not like this that they can have different speeds. So every wagon has to have the same speed, because they are moving in the same speed, in the same takt, in the same rhythm through the building. So it's like this, that we try to level them to this 5 days. It's not always possible. Here we are in the traditional field, so we have the specialization of the guy who builds the doors. He can only build the doors. He cannot do electrical works. So sometimes he has a little bit less amount of work, but still it has to fit to the system. What comes out is a kind of takt plan. It seems like the classical Gantt chart which I showed before, but a little bit more in detail. But this I would like to show you what it really is, what I understand as a takt plan. A takt plan looks like this. So on this side you have the working areas, or we call it takt areas. So this is one takt area and two flats. It's called Wohneinheiten. So 2 flats are in this takt area, and we have here the sequence of work. And we have here the time slot. So it looks like this. We have the takted time slot or takted timeline. We have the takt area, and we have the flow. Here's the value creation, and we have different kind of flows. The first flow is the horizontal flow, the red line. That means from the perspective of the flat, because the client bought one flat, he can easily see who is when inside my flat. So if I'm here on takt 13 or week 13, the guy for the tiles is inside. What happens from the diagonal perspective or from the trade perspective? So the drywaller is the first takt. He's in area 1 or flat 9, and on the next takt he goes to the next area, and he is also flowing through the building. From the perspective of the flat, so the value creation or the parade of trades is flowing through the flat. That's how we see work. That's how we see the construction site, and we try to optimize this so that we reduce the throughput time, because we can already overhand it. For sure we cannot overhand it directly this flat, but we can finish this flat so that it's out of the site manager's perspective. We can finish it, close the door, and then this flat is finished. And also from this perspective, we try to bring in a continuous flow that they don't have that much interruption. How we do it? For sure, the base is the schedule which I showed you before. but it's really difficult to bring. For sure, we have problems outside, and we have to handle that. You have to control that. You have to react on this. How we do this? We have a daily meeting on the construction site. Sometimes in the flat, we have different kind of boards. We call it Takt boards, and we discuss the process of the construction site on a daily basis. That means we evaluate the process regarding quality, regarding time on this board. So what we do is, you have seen the Takt schedule, we just cross it out if it's done or if it's not done. And if it's not done or there is a problem, we together we create a kind of action. So we decide which kind of action we have to do to get back to the schedule. This is the first point. If it's not possible to get back to the schedule, we have to adjust this schedule. There are different forms to adjust them. But what's really important is this guy, the site manager. He's not standing there and saying, you have to do this, you have to do this, you have to do that. He is more talking with the persons, integrating the different kind of traits and finding a solution with them together. So it's all about the cultural things. In the beginning, this was a really big problem for us as a company to have this kind of boards outside, because this board is totally transparent. So it's just standing there on the construction site. The client can come. What's listening there are all the problems we have. All the mistakes we have done. Sometimes we also made pictures. And as we came up with this idea, our guys said, we will not do it. They will just come and say, what did you do here? What did you do there? But then I discussed a little bit with them. What we do right now, we have this transparency. We also show the mistakes there. But we have already defined in a defined action what we will do to get rid of these problems. And it's really necessary that to do it in a sustainable way. So we force them to do this in that way that this problem will not come up again. So you have seen this curve in the beginning. What happens from the theoretical point if we handle the construction site like this? It's not like this that the curve goes up in the end. It goes up in the middle, because in the middle, if the train is totally inside the building, then we have the highest peak of amount of work. And afterwards, this train is also going slowly out. First, the drywaller will fall out, then of the construction site, then the electric guy, and so on. So what happens, the highest peak is in the middle, but it's quite controlled. So I can easily say when will be the peak, and I can really plan it in a really, really good way. This is the theoretical point. What happens outside? I just made this curve so they more or less look like this. This is the blue ones are projects with a weekly takt, so that means every week the trades go to the next area. Green ones are with a 2-day takt, and red ones are with the 1-day takt. What happens here are the takts, and if you want to calculate the throughput time or the project time, you just have to divide the red curves with the factor of 4. So that means here we needed 67 takts. Through 4 is 70 weeks. We needed so we are here, we needed just 17 weeks if you combine it with the blue one to finish this construction site. Why with the factor of 4? Because if we do a daily takt, we don't use the Friday as a working day. It's more or less a day off, or it's a buffer day. And if we calculate it with 2 days, it's also like this, that you have to calculate this amount through 2. So we are somewhere here. So you see that we don't need longer, but we need much less resources than before. And we also, you see, we have also we have a kind of a starting curve and the end curve, and the middle we have a kind of plateau, and this is the point where we actually come to this flow. There we have a continuous workload every day, every week, every month. And we just came to this point, 1.5 years ago. Before we were just handling still these curves. For sure, it's a little bit more easier to plan it. But still, within this weekly takt, we didn't come to a real flow, so that the subcontractor is also feeling this flow. That's just how we arrived if we went down to the 1 and 2 day takt. And I just give you an example. If you have a hotel, what we did before, we just brought together 5 or 6 rooms and said this is one working area. So Trivola go inside this area. You have the whole week. Go inside, and then after the next week, go to the next 5 rooms. What we did with the daily tech, we just said, okay, just go over the first day just in one room, and the next day go to the next room. But what happens on the second day? Not on the second week, on the second day, the next trade is already in the first room. And that's how you speed up the process. What happens then? You have a high interface between the trades. So you have really, you have to have a stable processes, because if you have a problem within a weekly takt, it's not an issue to solve it if the problem is on Monday or Tuesday, it's not the problem to solve it till Friday. If you have a daily takt, or sometimes we have an hourly takt in some projects, you have to react within this takt, and to react within a day, it's not so easy. So you cannot raise up the resources so easily. I just would like to show you some examples. Here we have different trains. So here it's just one tech plan of a bigger project. It was the project of this highest curve here. Can you go back? Yeah, it was this project here. And the activities. We have different trains. We can also build one train, but then it just takes longer. So we split it up into more trains. So that means also at this level here, we need 3 times the purple resource. But it's just a question of speed and resources. What happens on site? This was the planned version, this was the as-is version, so for sure we adjusted it. Yeah. For example, the door guy or the cleaning guy, he didn't came in a really in a small batch size, he came in a bigger batch size, but we know exactly what happens if we schedule it in a different way. So you know directly how to plan it and what it means for the resources, because behind every part here, every takt, there's also resources, there are costs behind, and so on. So you directly see, if you change this to this part, what it means here on the curve with the resources. Just to summarize it, what happens, or what we have figured out in this 100 project we have done. It's not so easy. Not from the technical point, this is not so difficult. It's not the method, it's not so difficult. It's more about how you integrate the people. That's what we learned on the second, third, and fourth project. Afterwards, we integrate them a little bit more. What happens? We increase the stability and also the transparency on the site. So we know on a daily basis what kind of status our construction sites have. The data comes also digital. We do it manual on a board, but we translate it then in a digital system, and we have a kind of daily update of our projects. We need less resources, and especially from the subcontractor's perspective. So we can do with the amount of resources we have, because this is right now quite a big problem in Germany, because we have this construction boom. We can build more. In the end, you have seen the curve was going down, so there was time for quality to overhand the project to the client. Before, if you have this end phase where it's really chaotic and a lot of people are on site, you don't have the time to bring the project to that stage that you overhand it without zero defects. So if we overhanded the project before, we still had months of, more than 1 month of rework afterwards. Right now we come to the stage that we overhanded and we don't have zero defects. This is a vision, but we have less defects than before. The takt time and bench size, we were so stable that we reduced them and speeded up the construction site. And what happens, the throughput time and project overall time will go down immediately. From the perspective of the 100 or 120 project, it's just a rough evaluation, but I did it just to give you a feeling. After a while, when we figured out what kind of success factors we have in the project, we come to the point that we managed to get 40% of the project with the A+. That I just schedule it from A is the best, and then you go down to the alphabet, and it goes more negative. So we just managed to make 40% with the A+, 30% were okay, still really good compared to the traditional sector. 20% of the project were just okay, like there was not big difference between the traditional way and this way. And then we come to the F. So we also had 10% 20% of projects which totally failed, really totally failed. Not from the methodology point, it was more or less because of the people. If you come to a really, if you did it a lot of times with this traditional way, and you do it in this really, really fast way, and it's quite with a high frequency on site, so you have to react on an hourly base. And this comes, the train comes, the train crashes, then you have a lot of problems to get the train back on track. That's why we had this 10% of really project which really failed. We have to analyze them because you already said it. We can learn a lot out of this, but I think most of the points are the most critical points where the persons, not the persons that they were too stupid. We just didn't brought them in the right way on board, I think. Good. That was just short update what I'm doing on a daily basis. I'm more than happy to answer your questions right now.
Thank you, Marco. Nüüd on aega 9-8 küsimuseks.
No?
Okay, so thank you again, Marco. And everybody has a chance to ask after the
Yeah, I'm here the whole day.
Yes.
Thank you.